Welcome to this edition of Dosti Talks, where we talk to people making an impact in the Indian-Australian space. Chris Minns was the New South Wales opposition leader when I last interviewed him in March 2023. A year down the track, he joins me now as Premier Chris Minns. Welcome to Indian Link, Premier Minns. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and we get Indian Link in our office, and it's an amazing publication, so it's a real honour to be here with you as the Premier.
Premier, now, at the very outset, we need to clarify something. There's a photograph of yours doing the rounds in the community, and a lot of people are intrigued as to the background to this photograph and the story behind it.
Okay.
Can you tell us what
There you go. So
the question is, what are you and Albo listening to? And we were trying to guess it out. Any AC/DC songs? A latest Bollywood hit showing your love for India?
Yes.
A TEDx talk on good leadership values?
Yes.
Mental telepathy on helping Australians with cost of living crisis? Or something else?
Well, it's number 5, something else. I've got a good answer for this. We were listening to a translation of Prime Minister Modi's speech. So there you go. This was at Kudos Arena.
Yes.
When the Prime Minister of India was here, and Anthony had a a spare earbud,
Right.
which meant I could listen into the translation.
So you forgot to bring your earphones.
I forgot to bring it. In fairness to me, it wasn't long after the election, so I wasn't focused on what I had to bring.
And how did you think about your experience at the Kudos Arena?
Amazing. It was really impressive. I didn't quite appreciate how many people would be there. And I actually got to introduce the Prime Minister, which was a real thrill.
Premier, now Western Australia recently sent a 110-member delegation to India. Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen has signalled her first overseas trip will be to India. Queensland has put together a 5-year investment and trade strategy. Premier, what can be done to raise the tempo of the New South Wales trade and investment relationship?
Well, I hope to say something about a trip to India soon. I think it's really important.
Tell us. We won't tell anyone. This is just a secret between the two of us.
We'll give you when we're ready to announce it, we'll absolutely make sure Indian Link knows all about it. So I haven't been overseas yet as the Premier, but India will be my number 1 priority when it comes to the first overseas trip, because I just feel as if there's an enormous opportunity for us. We're even in a better position than the other states when it comes to potential opportunities, primarily because we've got such a massive, dynamic, exciting, educated community in New South Wales. And it's the fastest growing community in the state, and I have looked at the diaspora, particularly in Western Sydney, and I've thought to myself, although they're all over New South Wales, but particularly for Western Sydney, and I think, well, we've got a group of people that are disproportionately university educated, starting small businesses, understand the culture, the links, the business strategies and the opportunities in one of the biggest markets in the world. And currently, India is Australia's 11th biggest export destination. We could get far higher up the number.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Premier, now comparing us to other states, because I'm very keen for New South Wales to be on top. Victoria has done much to build a soft power reputation in India. They have invested millions of dollars in programs such as the Melbourne International Film Festival, as a result of which Victoria has about 53,000 international students arriving every year. New South Wales about 33,000, and all the benefits which go with the students, like increased tourism when their friends and family visit and so on. We seem to be losing on the build-up of the soft power reputation of our state in India. What needs to be done to increase the state's soft power recognition? Clearly, funding community functions like Diwali and Holi are not fully doing the job, but what else can be done?
Well, look, in part it is recognising that with the large Indian Australian community in New South Wales, that there's an opportunity to celebrate as part of our multicultural community the enormously rich tradition that is within our subcontinent community, our Indian community in particular. I think we're going better than that. I wouldn't necessarily rely on the idea that Melbourne in particular is 20,000 in front of us when it comes to tertiary education and student, particularly as an export industry. We're a lot closer than that. My view is in the years ahead, we need to be in a position where the ease of trade is turned up to its maximum extent. And by that I mean there are so many opportunities for two-way business trade, immigration as well as export opportunities. I don't think we're exploiting that yet. And I think the reason for that is particularly for newly arrived migrants, I can understand them getting settled in New South Wales, starting businesses here, focusing on the domestic economy first. But over time, I would expect them to start orienting to export markets, particularly in India. And at that point, New South Wales is in a fantastic position to take advantage of those emerging opportunities. So that's the first thing. The second handbrake on economic opportunity is housing. Now, last year, Victoria produced 58,000 houses. New South Wales produced 48,000, notwithstanding the fact that we've got a bigger population. Now, the reason I think that they may have stolen a march on us, this is Victoria, is because they're producing more housing, and particularly for young people, and demographically speaking, the subcontinent Indian community is of a younger generation. We have to provide housing for them. If we get that piece of the jigsaw puzzle right, everything else is better than Victoria.
Now, you mentioned about that as one of the things you want to achieve in this the next 12 months and beyond. Obviously, there are a lot of consuls who are fighting you for it. They don't want it in their own backyard, this ability to increase 48,000 housing to, I think you mentioned 75,000 housing per year. Is that a battle you're ready to take on?
Well, it is a battle we're ready to take on, because if we don't, then we're not going to have the next generation of young Australians, regardless of their background, calling Sydney and New South Wales home. And a city without young people is a city without a future. And if you look at it, I mean, we could talk about it for equity grounds and fairness grounds, and that is young people having opportunity for housing, joining communities, starting families, starting businesses. But think about it economically. That group, that 30 to 40-year-old group, if they don't have a place to live, they will leave because they're educated, they can travel, they can move to other jurisdictions and other communities. But if you do keep them here, then they generate so much economic opportunity for the state. And last year, we lost twice as many people between the ages of 30 and 40 than we gained. Twice as many. So we have to turn it around.
So the ability
so
for a new...
in terms of the councils, if we don't insist on housing, then I don't know what the plan B is for Sydney.
Premier, circling back to another issue, now New South Wales has sister state status with 6 cities, San Francisco, Nagoya, Wellington, Portsmouth, Gonzo and Florence. Time to add another one from India?
Maybe, and I can imagine that the Indian community in New South Wales would be open for that. That's an interesting statistic, and that would show the evolution of migration patterns to Australia over the last 200 years. And so it's really important to note that the largest intake, the biggest source of inbound migrants to New South Wales is from India. And we are so lucky to have them.
So time to hunt and look for a sister city in India.
That may well be the case.
What a wonderful announcement as you announce your trip to India.
Yes.
Premier Minns, when we spoke last year, you said, we have a team that looks like a community we hope to represent. Now that you're in power, how have you harnessed the strength of this very diverse team you have?
In many respects, it's simply being around the cabinet table and having that kind of experience in their bones. And the Deputy Premier obviously has Indian heritage. The Treasurer of New South Wales has Indian heritage. And I think that brings an understanding into the Indian community in particular that someone like myself wouldn't bring to the table. And the fact that they're in the most senior positions in the government, education, the Treasury, we've got members of Parliament with Indian heritage who represent big parts of Western Sydney. Having them in the room in senior positions, there is absolutely no substitute for it. And I don't tend to go around saying we should be congratulated for this. It should just be natural. This is exactly what modern political parties should be doing. They should look like the community that they represent. And I'm very, very proud to say that that's what Labor has done.
Premier Minns, it's a month of March when we celebrate the wonderful diversity of New South Wales and bring together Australians from all different backgrounds. It's about inclusiveness, respect, and a sense of belonging for everyone. Yet, we are aware that parts of our community are grieving about the ongoing issues in the Middle East. In your view, is the government doing enough for people in New South Wales from both sides of the conflict?
It's my view that we are, but I've been really honest about this in the sense that my impact on communities' unhappiness or grief or apprehension about the events in the Middle East is limited. And the reason for that is that I'm a state premier in New South Wales on the other side of the world. So I've said quite a few times that the words that we utter in New South Wales will have limited impact on the dispute, on the conflict in the Middle East, but it can have a major impact on our community here in New South Wales. And my obligation, my responsibility is to peace and security as the first two orders of priority in New South Wales. Community harmony is really important, but I've been honest about it. That's going to be elusive in this state for a while. But I cannot compromise on peace and security. That has to be the primary objective.
No, I understand. But looking at some peak Muslim organization had announced the boycott of the iftar dinners hosted by state governments before they were cancelled by the governments themselves. Again, would it be right to admit that a part of a wonderful multicultural community is hurting and needs to be shown more compassion, action, and then reconciliation?
Well, they are hurting. There's no doubt about that. And I wanted to say a few things in relation to our iftar dinner, which is not going ahead. Firstly, they made it clear that they were unable or unwilling to come. And that's the reason I'm not going ahead with it. And the reason I say that is that I don't want a very large Muslim Australian community to believe that we didn't want to hold an iftar or that we weren't prepared to acknowledge and respect those traditions. We were. But secondly, I can't make people attend. And this is an issue that governments right around the world are dealing with, from Paris to Chicago to New York to cities in the Middle East to most European capitals. It's not germane to Sydney. So I can't promise that there'll be community healing or harmony on these issues in the short run because the dispute in the Middle East is continuing and we have two big communities in New South Wales representing either side of that conflict. And they've got very passionate views about it. Both communities have been traumatised, and the ability of the New South Wales government to bring those communities together is limited at the moment. Now, I could sort of lie about it and pretend that it's easy and we'll get it all sorted, but that's not the case.
Premier, almost 365 days as Premier.
Yes.
The training wheels are off, a quarter of the way in the 4-year electoral cycle. What would you count as your 3 biggest achievements in the last 12 months?
I think removing the wages cap in New South Wales so that we could get good, productive negotiations with frontline workers in the state, and that as a result of that, we're starting to see both an increase in recruitment for essential workers like police, paramedics. That's number one. Number two, teachers in New South Wales are now the highest paid in the country. They were the lowest paid. And any city or community that hopes to have a plan for the future must base it on education, because that's the key difference. And in my view, you cannot replace a teacher with an app or a computer or a website. There's something about that connection between the teacher and a student. So I think we're going to recruit and retain the best and the brightest to our public schools. That's number two. And number three is banning mobile phones in New South Wales schools.
Yes.
I've got 3 boys.
Yes. How have they reacted to that?
Not happy, but they can't vote. So, it doesn't matter so much. But in all seriousness, I've been concerned about mobile phone use amongst young people for a long time. And at least there's a break now. And I've got to say, I've spoken to parents and I've spoken to teachers and even students when they're being honest, and they say it's a good decision.
Well done, Premier. Thank you very much for joining us on Indian Link. Now, this was a second interview in 2 years in the month of March. Can I call you in March next year to have another chat?
It's a deal. 100%.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.